My name is Jessica Torres. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a correctional officer. I've only been doing this job for 3 years, but 3 years is more than enough to learn one truth. They are inmates, but they are still people. People with fears, regrets, anger, and sometimes hope. If you want to hear the real stories from behind these walls, the ones most people never talk about, subscribe to this channel. These are the stories I lived, and this is where I tell them. The letter was written in shaky handwriting on prison commissary paper. Dear Officer Torres, the doctors say I have maybe a week left. I haven't seen my daughter in 41 years. I know I don't deserve to ask, but could you help me see her one more time before I die? I just want to say I'm sorry. Sincerely, Dorothy Mitchell, cell 18. I'm Jessica Torres, and I had 72 hours to do something that the California Department of Corrections said was impossible. This is the story of how far I was willing to go for a dying woman's last wish. I'd known Dorothy Mitchell for about 6 months before that letter. She was 68 years old, serving life without parole for second-degree murder. She'd been at Riverside for the past 12 years, transferred from 3 other facilities before landing in C Block. She was in a wheelchair now. Diabetes had taken most of her mobility, and her health was declining fast. But her mind was sharp, and her spirit was somehow still intact despite 4 decades behind bars. Dorothy was one of those inmates everyone liked. She never caused trouble, always had a kind word, crocheted blankets for new arrivals who came in with nothing. She'd become the unofficial grandmother of C Block. When younger inmates had problems, they'd go sit by Dorothy's cell and talk. She'd listen, offer advice, never judge. I'd seen hardened women cry on her shoulder more times than I could count. But there was a sadness in Dorothy that never quite went away, a weight she carried that went deeper than prison walls. The morning I got her letter, I went to visit her in her cell. She was sitting in her wheelchair by the small window, looking out at the yard. She'd lost a lot of weight recently. Her orange jumpsuit hung loose on her frame. Dorothy, I got your letter. She didn't turn around. I shouldn't have written it. Wasn't fair to put that on you. Tell me about your daughter. Dorothy was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Her name is Sarah. She was 7 years old the last time I held her. She's 48 now. I've missed her entire life. What happened? Dorothy turned her wheelchair to face me. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell yet. I killed her father. My husband, he was beating me, had been for years. That night, he came after Sarah. Said he was going to teach her a lesson for talking back. I saw him raise his hand to her, and something in me just snapped. I grabbed a kitchen knife and I stabbed him. Didn't mean to kill him. Just wanted him to stop. But I hit an artery, and he bled out before the ambulance came. Self-defense. Defense of your child. That's not how they saw it in 1984. Battered woman syndrome wasn't recognized like it is now. My public defender was overworked and underpaid. The prosecutor painted me as a cold-blooded killer, said I could have left, could have called police, could have done anything else. Jury convicted me of second-degree murder, life without parole. Sarah went to live with my sister. You haven't seen her in 41 years. My sister thought it was better if Sarah forgot about me, made a clean break, started a new life without a murderer for a mother. I wrote letters for years, never got responses. Eventually, I stopped trying, figured maybe my sister was right. Maybe Sarah was better off without me. But you want to see her now. Dorothy's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her weathered face. Officer Torres, I'm dying. The doctor told me yesterday. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. It's spread everywhere. They give me a week, maybe 2 if I'm unlucky. I just want to look at my daughter one more time. I want to tell her I'm sorry. Sorry for what I did. Sorry I wasn't there for her. Sorry for everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just need her to know that I loved her every single day I was locked up in here. I knelt down beside her wheelchair. I'll see what I can do. The system won't allow it. I know how this works. Lifers don't get special privileges, even dying ones. Let me try. I spent that entire day navigating bureaucracy. First stop was Lieutenant Morrison's office. I explained the situation. He listened, sympathy in his eyes, but shook his head. Torres, you know the rules. Compassionate release requests take months to process. Medical furloughs require mountains of paperwork and approval from Sacramento. We don't have that kind of time. So she just dies without seeing her daughter? I'm sorry. My hands are tied. I went to the warden's office. Same answer. The legal department said it was impossible without proper authorization. The medical department confirmed Dorothy had days, not weeks. Everyone was sympathetic. Everyone said no. That night I went home and did something I rarely do. I cried out of frustration. The system wasn't designed for mercy. It was designed for punishment and control. Dorothy Mitchell had served 41 years for protecting her daughter from an abusive husband, and now she was going to die alone in a prison cell without ever seeing that daughter again. Then I did something that could have cost me my job. I found Sarah Mitchell online. It wasn't hard. Social media made everyone findable. Sarah Mitchell was 48, married, living in Portland, Oregon. She was a high school teacher. Her profile showed photos of 2 teenage kids, a golden retriever, a nice house with a garden. She built a good life, a normal life. I sent her a message. Ms. Mitchell, my name is Jessica Torres. I'm a correctional officer at Riverside Prison in California. Your mother, Dorothy Mitchell, is an inmate here. I'm reaching out because I paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then I told her everything about Dorothy's cancer, about the week she had left, about the 41 years of separation, about the letter asking to see her daughter one last time. I hit send and waited. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. Sarah Mitchell had responded. Officer Torres, I don't know what to say. I haven't thought about my mother in decades. My aunt told me she didn't want contact with me, that she'd moved on with her life in prison. Are you telling me that was a lie? I wrote back immediately. Your mother wrote you letters for years. I don't know if you ever received them. She stopped writing because she never heard back. She thought you'd moved on, but she never stopped thinking about you. There was a long pause. Then, I need time to process this. I understand, but I need to be honest with you. The doctors gave her a week, maybe less. If you want to see her, it needs to be soon. Another pause. I'll call you tomorrow. I gave her my number and spent a sleepless night wondering if I'd done the right thing. Maybe Sarah's aunt had been right. Maybe it was better to let the past stay buried. Maybe I was about to cause pain for everyone involved. Sarah called at 6 a.m. I'm coming. I need to see her. I've spent 41 years with a hole in my heart, and I need to know who my mother really is. There's a problem. The prison system won't approve a visit. Not in time. The bureaucracy moves too slow. Then what do we do? I took a deep breath. I have an idea, but it's risky and probably against every rule in the book. Dorothy's condition deteriorated rapidly over the next 24 hours. She was moved to the prison infirmary. Dr. Reyes said she had maybe 72 hours left. The cancer was shutting down her organs one by one. She was on morphine for the pain, drifting in and out of consciousness. I went to see her. She was lying in the infirmary bed, looking impossibly small and frail. Dorothy, I found Sarah. Her eyes opened slowly. What? Your daughter? She's in Portland, and she wants to see you." Tears started flowing immediately. "She does, after all this time. She never stopped loving you. Your sister lied to both of you, kept you apart. But Sarah's coming. She'll be here tomorrow. But the prison won't allow it. Let me worry about that." What I did next could have ended my career. I went to Lieutenant Morrison and told him Dorothy was declining faster than expected, that we needed to transfer her to an outside hospital for end-of-life care. It wasn't exactly a lie. Dorothy did need better medical care than the infirmary could provide. But my real motivation wasn't medical. It was giving Sarah a chance to see her mother in a setting that wasn't a prison visiting room. Morrison approved the transfer. Dorothy was moved to Riverside Community Hospital the next morning. I volunteered to be her guard escort, standard protocol for inmate hospital transfers. One guard stays with the inmate at all times. Sarah flew in that afternoon. I picked her up from the airport myself, off duty, in my personal car. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and her mother's smile. She was nervous, hands shaking as she got in the car. "I don't know what to say to her," Sarah admitted. 41 years. How do you bridge that kind of gap? You don't need to say anything. Just being there is enough. What if she doesn't recognize me? What if the morphine has her too out of it? Then you sit with her, hold her hand, let her know she didn't die alone. We pulled into the hospital parking lot. I led Sarah through the corridors to Dorothy's room. Outside the door, Sarah stopped. "I'm scared." "I know, but you'll regret it forever if you don't go in." Sarah took a deep breath and opened the door. Dorothy was awake, barely. She was lying in the hospital bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, four in her arm. But when she saw Sarah walk through that door, something changed in her face. Recognition, disbelief, joy, and heartbreak all mixed together. "Sarah." Her voice was barely audible. "Hi, Mom." Dorothy started sobbing, deep, racking sobs that shook her frail body. Sarah crossed the room and took her mother's hand. Then she climbed into the hospital bed and held her mother the way she probably hadn't been held in 41 years. I stepped outside to give them privacy. I stood in the hallway, tears streaming down my face, and prayed I wouldn't get caught. What I was doing wasn't exactly authorized. The hospital transfer was legitimate, but arranging a visit from Sarah without proper clearance, bringing her here myself, leaving them alone together, all of that was bending or breaking rules. But some rules deserve to be broken. I don't know what they talked about in that room. That was between a mother and daughter who'd lost 4 decades. But after 2 hours, Sarah opened the door. Her eyes were red, but there was peace on her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us this." "How is she?" "Tired, peaceful." We talked about everything. She told me about my father, about what really happened that night, about how she was trying to protect me. I told her about my life, my kids, my husband, showed her pictures. She got to be a grandmother for a few hours. "I'm glad." "Officer Torres, she asked me to give you something." Sarah handed me a small crocheted blanket. "She made it for you. Said you were the daughter she got to watch grow up, that you gave her purpose these last few months." I clutched the blanket and couldn't stop crying. Sarah stayed with Dorothy for 3 days. She barely left the hospital room. She held her mother's hand, told her stories, sang old lullabies Dorothy had sung to her as a child. She called her own children and let them talk to their grandmother over the phone. She gave Dorothy something most lifers never get, a chance to be part of a family again. On the 3rd night, Dorothy passed away peacefully with Sarah sleeping in the chair beside her bed, their hands still linked together. The fallout came quickly. Lieutenant Morrison called me into his office the day after Dorothy died. "Torres, I know what you did. The hospital visit, bringing the daughter, all of it. You went around protocol. Yes, sir. You could be suspended for this. Maybe fired. I know. He leaned back in his chair. But Dorothy Mitchell died, with her daughter by her side. She got to have peace before she passed. So I'm going to ask you one question, and then we're never going to talk about this again. Do you regret it? No, sir. I don't. He nodded slowly. Neither do I. This conversation never happened. Get back to work. I walked out of his office, knowing I'd gotten incredibly lucky. But I also knew I'd do it again, in a heartbeat. Sarah came to Riverside a week later. She donated $5,000 to the prison library in her mother's name. She also brought something else: letters. Dozens of letters Dorothy had written to her over the years. Letters Sarah had never received because her aunt had hidden them. I read them all, Sarah told me. Every single one. My mother loved me so much. She told me about her days, about the books she read, about how she imagined my life. She was there for every birthday, every milestone, every moment. Just through these letters, I never got to read. What will you do with them? Keep them. Share them with my children. Let them know their grandmother was more than just an inmate. She was a woman who made a terrible choice in an impossible situation, a woman who loved fiercely and paid for it with 41 years of her life, a woman who deserved better than what she got. Sarah handed me an envelope. This one was addressed to you. I found it in her belongings. I opened it later, alone in my car. Dorothy's shaky handwriting covered the page. Dear Officer Torres, thank you for seeing me as human when the system only saw an inmate number. Thank you for caring when caring wasn't required. Thank you for giving me 3 days of being a mother again before I died. I spent 41 years in cages, but you helped me feel free for those last precious hours. You are exactly what this system needs more of, someone who remembers that mercy matters. Don't ever lose that. Love, Dorothy. I keep that letter in my locker at work. On hard days, when the system feels too broken and the rules feel too rigid, I read it and remember why I do this job. Dorothy Mitchell was buried in a small cemetery in Portland. Sarah planted roses on her grave. At the funeral, Sarah's children read some of their grandmother's letters aloud. They cried for a grandmother they'd never met, but had somehow always known through words written from a prison cell. I think about Dorothy often, about how she spent more than half her life behind bars for protecting her daughter from an abusive man, about how the system failed her at every turn, about how she still managed to maintain her humanity, her kindness, her ability to love despite everything that had been taken from her. The California prison system processes thousands of inmates every year. Most of them die in custody without fanfare, without family, without anyone to mark their passing. Dorothy almost became another statistic, another number, another forgotten life. But she didn't, because she wrote a letter, because Sarah found the courage to face her past, because sometimes doing the right thing means bending the rules that stand between a dying woman and peace. I don't know if what I did was right by the standards of the Department of Corrections. I broke protocol, bypassed authorization, and took risks with my career. But I know that Dorothy Mitchell died holding her daughter's hand. I know that Sarah got to say goodbye. And I love you. I know that two people who'd been kept apart by lies and bureaucracy got 72 hours to be a family again. That's worth more than any rule I broke. The prison system isn't designed for moments like these. It's designed for punishment, containment, control. Mercy isn't built into the architecture. Compassion has to be smuggled in, hidden in the spaces between regulations, carried out by people willing to risk something to see inmates as human beings first. Dorothy taught me that. She taught me that 41 years in a cage doesn't erase a mother's love. She taught me that it's never too late for forgiveness. She taught me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is give someone a chance to say goodbye. She also taught me that the system is only as humane as the people working within it. Rules and regulations can't account for dying wishes or broken families or the complicated reality of human lives. Sometimes you have to choose between following the rules and following your conscience. I chose conscience. I'd choose it again. Dorothy Mitchell spent 41 years paying for a split-second decision to protect her daughter. She'll never know her grandchildren grow up. She never got to attend Sarah's wedding or watch her build a career or celebrate life's ordinary moments. The system took all of that from her, but in those last 72 hours, she got something back. She got to be a mother. She got to be loved. She got to die knowing that the little girl she tried to save had grown up strong and good and whole. That's not justice. Nothing about Dorothy's story is just, but it's mercy. And sometimes, in a place designed to contain the worst of humanity, mercy is the most radical act possible. I still work in C Block. I still see inmates who remind me of Dorothy, lifers growing old behind bars, people who made terrible choices in impossible situations, women the system has forgotten. And when I see them, I remember that letter. I remember the blanket Dorothy crocheted for me. I remember Sarah sleeping in a chair, holding her mother's hand as she died. Some stories don't have happy endings. Dorothy's doesn't. She's gone, and no amount of last-minute mercy changes the fact that she lost 41 years with her daughter. But she didn't die alone. She died loved, and in a system that too often strips people of their humanity, that matters more than anything.